The Working Actor NYC. He's Patrick Richwood.
He's Benjamin House. Today, we're going to have a conversation about, you know what? The elephant in the room. Casting directors. Don't look at me like I'm great. It was your idea.
Are you saying casting directors have big ears?
No, you know what they have? They have energetic ears. They can hear all kinds of things that aren't being said.
I am absolutely blown away by the memory that casting directors have. I remember I went to a casting for a soap opera in Australia.
Had to carve it in sandstone pictures, and then they did like a flip book in stone. Go ahead.
And 10 years later, I went to an audition for a musical, and at the callback, and the casting director came up to me and says, "My God, Benjamin, I haven't seen you for a long time."
Amazing. That's amazing.
And I'm thinking, I mean, I can't remember who anybody is at the best of times, but
No, of course not.
this casting director literally remembered me from 10 years earlier.
Yeah. I mean, that does say something about your work, darling. It's indelible.
It stinks up the room so badly.
I was going to say it stains. It stains whatever it's touched. No. It's indelible. No. But you're right. There's this. It's a different species. Casting directors, their memories, and I also think they think categorically. They just are able to do that. Yeah. But also, there's another aspect to good casting directors that a lot of actors just sort of, I don't know. They don't even seem to take it into consideration, which is that they're good directors. Some really good casting directors are also really good directors in the room. You know, they give you a note. You go, that's really good. That's smart. Yeah. You know. But then there's also the ones that can remember things you don't want them to remember. Okay. Like 3 strikes, you're out.
What do you mean 3 strikes?
Oh, I've had casting directors who really. There's one in particular who's a really high-end casting director, and I went in for them.
We're not naming names.
Well, I don't want to name names because this person's
name
highly respected. But I went in for... Okay, it's Tara Rubin. I went in for her 3 or 4 different times, I'm going to say, back when I lived out in L.A., and I was much younger. And she was great. I mean, she gave me great... There's one who really gives great direction in the room, which she did back then. You know, I don't know how she runs them now. And she was always very, just great, you know, with me. And I got the sense that she believed in me and that she was having me in on purpose. You know, it wasn't like one of those things where you're like, what am I doing here?
Obligated to see you.
Or where you feel like the casting director's doing you a favor. I found that in television a lot. They'll be like, okay, I'm giving you a call back. Now this is very important.
Oh, God.
Do it right. You know?
God.
Oh, yeah. I've had that.
That's horrifying.
Some of those people are infamous. You know, you meet all different kinds, just like you meet all different kinds of actors. And I categorically failed 3 times in a row at auditions for Tara Rubin. First time I just went up so many times, or it went up or something, and I just couldn't get it back. Yeah. The next time I went up on lyrics or something, I just wasn't, each time I wasn't as prepared as I should have been. I didn't, you know, put my best foot forward by pulling out everything I had. And it just didn't.
So was this in a situation where Tara Rubin was the casting director and the director and the producers were in the room? Like, was it for...
No. These were always initial calls.
Just initial call with
it wasn't like I embarrassed her in front of anybody. I think
that's what I was going to ask. I was going to say, so she literally had to get to the point with you. She was just like, I can't trust this guy to put him in front of a director.
I think so. I think she just... Either that or she just was... Or it could have been something even more simple, like... He's never going to get it together. He's not committed or something. Who knows?
Sure.
I mean, I could have thought all of those things if I was a director casting stuff. I remember one time I was in a casting session for a play I was directing, and it was just a small thing. It was going to be like a benefit reading. Yeah. And a girl walked in, and she was perfect for one of the parts. And the first word out of her mouth before the door was even closed was sorry. I don't know why. I think she was just in a mood of like she was apologizing to everybody because she was late or she was, who knows? I don't know. I didn't know what was going on the other side of the door.
Right.
But I just remember thinking, wow, she's just completely sabotaged
That's your first
herself.
impression.
Yeah.
That's your first
Sorry,
impression.
well, really? Anyway, I failed 3 times for Tara, I think, and that was that. I never, ever went in for her again, but once when I had an entree from Mel Brooks to audition for the tour of.
Oh, Mel Brooks was cooking for you?
Yes, that's right. All 5 courses. We met, whatever. He said, use my name. I want you to, you'd be great for Carmen Gia. This was for the producers.
Of course.
So it was however many years ago. And so I did. I went there and had an audition but I got the feeling that it was reluctant on the part of the casting office.
Oh, no.
And it was just sort of like they were doing
doing Mel a favor.
I guess. I don't know. I don't think they did Mel favors. I don't quite remember. I think between him and my agent, it just seemed like they shoehorned me in.
Oh, God.
And it was for Susan Stroman. It was right to callbacks.
Yeah.
And they actually kept me and gave me some adjustments and had me come back in and everything, and then deliberated for quite a while before they let me go. So I feel like I
didn't waste their time.
I didn't waste their time. And but that was the only other time I ever went in for her. I've gone in several times for Merri Sugarman, who's really great and very supportive in the room and all that stuff. This is not a dig. I actually think it's to point out that casting directors they're busy, their time is precious, and they're just like directors. Why we shouldn't think we should give every speck of all we can bring, so that why make them guess? I really didn't.
What do you mean make them guess?
I somehow, at that young age, expected that she should know that I'm good. I just made a mistake.
Right.
But it's like, she doesn't have room for that.
She doesn't have time.
Once, or twice, yes. 3 times, no.
But I also think that, once you've done a great job for a casting director, they know they can rely on you
Absolutely.
to make them look good.
Absolutely. That's happened with me, too. Bernie Telsey is a good example of that. Pretty soon, you're just going right to callbacks.
Right.
For big shots.
Right.
Because they know they can count on you.
Yeah.
And yes, you're absolutely right. It works in both directions. Yeah. How many casting directors would you say you've become actual professional friends with, like their colleagues?
Colleagues?
Well,
I would definitely say Paul Hardt is on that list.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I can tell you exactly why.
Yeah, he's good.
Way back in the day, when I was still going to EPA's, Equity Principal Auditions, one day I had put down on my list of auditions that I was going to go to that week. One of them was it 12 Angry Men on Broadway?
Oh, yeah.
So we're talking 15 years ago, 20 years ago.
Was it that long ago?
I honestly don't remember because I never actually saw the production. But Paul Hardt was the casting director.
I'm not in it, so why should I go and see it?
Well, I was also broke.
I know, I'm just kidding.
So the day of that EPA, the MTA went on strike. There were no buses. There were no trains. I walked into Manhattan.
From Brooklyn. From here.
Queens.
From Queens.
Yes, or maybe I lived downtown. I can't remember, but I walked to the audition, and I was one of maybe a dozen people who showed up to this audition. And so Paul Hardt was sitting there, and he had all the time in the world. I spent 20 minutes in the room with him, and that was my first time meeting him. I didn't suck.
Yeah.
We got to chatting. He wanted to know who I was and where I'd come from. I told him all about Australia. He had been to Australia. We had a mutual friend in Australia. We got to know each other, and that was the moment. He kept calling me in for things. He started using me as a reader.
Oh, that's great.
To this day, I will always show up to a Paul Hardt audition.
So will I. I think he's a really good egg, and he knows his stuff. And he's one of the ones, too, the casting directors that I respect the most are all in the category of they really love actors.
Yeah, Jay Binder. Loved actors.
Yeah, he sure did.
What a fantastic human being. He was one of my champions.
Yes, he was. He really was. He really was special. I think he believed that it mattered that you had people actually in the room in front of you.
Well, it sort of actually makes me think of the importance of a casting director is building a relationship. I can say I've built a professional relationship with certain casting directors. Paul Hardt, in the early days of my career, I had a professional relationship with Tara Rubin's office.
Yeah.
They would always call me in. Jay Binder, I had a professional relationship with them. It took me much, 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 much longer to make any sort of inroad at Bernie Telsey's office.
Yeah.
And not for want of trying, but I mean,
Yeah.
it just took them a long time.
They were so big for such a. They are so big. I mean, they for a while there they were just like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I lucked out with them, but I mean, well, lucked out. I did good.
Yeah.
You know, but I have had relationships. I mean, I've had working relationships where the same casting director, especially when I was doing a lot of TV and commercials in LA. I mean, I did a lot of commercials back in the day. Like, I don't even, about 140 commercials and campaigns and stuff. You know? Yeah. And because I was that guy that when I walked into the waiting room, people would be like, oh
great, there he goes.
He's got a guy. You know? It's like, even though that was, obviously that's not true. So I worked with a lot of the same casting directors over and over and over, and they get so friendly with you. And I don't know about you, but I don't remember where I know people from out of context. I saw my own agents on the street one time in a group on lunch or something.
Right.
A week after signing with them, didn't know who they were. Didn't know who any of them were. I was bluffing.
I know.
I bluffed the whole thing.
Oh my God. Yeah, I'm terrible with the faces and the names. Is why I could never work in casting.
No.
Although they do have the advantage of having our faces and our names in front of them when they meet us.
That's true. There are several that I love too. The team of Wojcik Seay is another one.
Oh yeah.
They're
Well,
Gayle has
Gayle
moved. Gayle
is
has
now
moved
the artistic director in St. Louis, isn't she?
Is it St. Louis? I can't remember if it's St. Louis or Kansas.
St. Louis.
Okay.
Not St. Louis Rep. What's the
Is
other one?
Kansas
Stage of St.
in
Louis. Stage of St. Louis. She's the
St. Louis
artistic
in
director.
Kansas. No.
But yeah, very, very warm, positive.
Yeah, both
room.
of them,
Yeah.
great people, and I've booked for them several times. It's not just about booking, though. I honestly do think it's about casting directors love you when you keep booking for them.
Sure.
They do.
But show up and do a good job, and
They show up
you
and do a
haven't
good
wasted anybody's time.
No.
You haven't wasted the slot.
No.
Those slots are precious.
Yeah.
You haven't wasted it. I'm wondering if you've ever been in a situation where you felt like, oh, this casting director doesn't understand me, doesn't get my brand, doesn't get my type.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah?
I've absolutely been in that situation. And what I do?
What?
I lean in. I just
To the
lean
mistake?
into what I'm doing.
Or to lean into who you really are.
I just keep leaning into who I am.
Right.
Because my feeling is they may not like what I am, or they may not get it, but it's going to be authentic. They're not going to be able to say, well, that was inauthentic. They're going to say, well, that's just him. I just don't like it. I feel like if you're going to worry about whether people get you or not, you're going to be wasting your precious years, because there's people that aren't going to get you.
Right.
There just are. I mean, it's also important to know what you are. It's so important to know what you are. And I think casting directors appreciate that.
I'm not going to keep turning up to the working class plumber, electrician jobs. I'm not going to book those. I'm going to book your doctor, your restaurant manager, your maitre d'. But the blue collar jobs are not in my. I'm not going to say they're not in my wheelhouse, but they're not my easy comfort zone.
Yeah, I'll go you one further. There are some things that I will never fit in, unless it's supposed to be funny. Like, I'll never be the imposing figure that can command the
Dark Overlord,
the Situation Room. I can't. Now, if you want to go for comedy,
I was going to say,
I can be
that
really
would make me laugh.
Yeah, Austin Pendleton as president. Gentlemen, I wonder if we could all just. Could we just keep it? Could everybody shut up? I'm going to talk now. I'm president.
Well, now my brain is like, oh, we have to write that.
Okay.
We have to write that scene because that's amazing.
I just think that, it's very important to know who you are. We were talking before about self-taping, and I was thinking it's so important to know what you are, because people get so stuck in, well, I don't look good. Oh, my hair's out of place. So this or that. And unless you're the leading lady, and even then, it's such an easy thing to get stuck on subjective self-imagery. And I think it's the same with how you approach a role. You're going to approach the role like Benjamin. No other Benjamin in the world. You're a one of a kind. And if you don't know what that one of a kind is and really embrace it, I think you're doing yourself a disservice. And I do think casting people smell that, and they like it. They like the smell of that.
Right.
they might not want it for this job, or they may not respond to your particular smell.
Right.
Since we're speaking about smells, right? Okay, they don't like that smell, but it's authentically you. There's nobody's going to deny that.
Yeah.
And I think actually that causes people to probably book more because they're seen more, because they know what they are. I'm not saying every part is the same. And also, I know physically I'm
A type.
Yeah, it's a type. I'm never going to be the Rock Hudson unless the lights are out and everybody's blind, deaf, and completely has no brain cells. Then I'm a dead ringer.
Speaking of not being the Rock Hudson, so I may be 20 years old. I have just signed with my first agency in Australia, and back in those days,
Oh my God,
there was a process called a go-see.
Oh sure.
A go-see. So my agent set me up with go-sees with
Yeah.
a couple of different casting directors in Australia, and I will forever burned into my memory. It was my go-see where there's no job at a go-see is just a meeting.
Yeah, right.
You go see the casting director and they meet you for the first time.
I remember those. Lots
There's
of them.
no job at stake. It's you maybe do an audition piece for them so they can sort of assess your talent, whatever. But it is really just a meeting.
Yeah.
So that they can know whether or not they're ever going to call you in for anything. And I went to Australia's largest, at that time, film and television casting director. And I met with one of their senior casting directors. And we had a wonderful time together. It was a very nice meeting.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, she said, Benjamin, the trouble with you is that you're too good looking to be quirky, but you're too regular looking to be handsome.
Oh.
And I wasn't disappointed. I guess maybe there was a part of me that's like, oh, you mean I'm not going to be a movie star tomorrow? Because I'm not the quirky guy and I'm not the good-looking guy. But my brain, for some reason, didn't go that route. My brain thought, oh, great. Well, I'll see you when I'm 40 and I can play the dad. Because they don't have to be quirky or good-looking. They can just be regular.
Yeah.
The dad can be regular.
Isn't that funny?
And I feel like it actually set me up for success in a lot of ways because it was like I had no false expectations about what my career was going to be. And it kind of came true. I started playing 40 when I was 27 years old.
Did you?
Oh my God!
Oh,
yeah, my first off-Broadway contract was in a play in which I played a 40-year-old, and I was 27.
Are you kidding me?
No,
That's hilarious.
And it was just a sort of an expectation that I had in my head. I let go of it for my 20s.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, that's okay. I'll start booking film and TV when I'm in my later 30s and my 40s, and that's exactly what came to pass. My experience with television casting directors is that they seem to change so often. Like I could keep a list of who was casting shows on Broadway. Mm-hmm. I could not keep a list of who was casting television shows. It seemed to change all the time.
You know what's funny? It didn't used to be that way.
Oh, really?
No, it really didn't. It didn't used to be that way at all. The casting directors were just as reliably there all the time in television. But then there was a lot less. There were so many less platforms. There were the networks, and there was Showtime and Bravo, Showtime and HBO or whatever.
Now everybody's a producer.
I think the big thing with casting directors now is not keeping track of who's the rotating, because that's sort of seems like that's going to be crazy making. I think the thing for me is who do I want actually to create relationships with?
But that's the hard thing for me now that it's everything all self-tape for film and television. How do I create a relationship with television and film casting directors? Because I don't meet them until they visit the set and we're shooting.
I know.
That's what happened to me on Gossip Girl.
Wait, what about callbacks? Don't you go to callbacks with film and television?
Gossip Girl, I didn't have a callback.
Oh, okay.
I submitted the tape and they booked me.
Mm-hmm.
And
then when you got there, they said, we thought we meant to book somebody else.
No,
Sorry.
No. We were shooting the scene it was a location shoot. There was a green room for the principal actors so that we could go and relax while they were doing the next setup or moving the extras or changing whatever they needed to change. Mm-hmm. And 3/4 of the way through the day, the casting director showed up And I had no idea who this woman was.
Yeah.
She knew all of the regulars, like the recurring characters and the principal characters, but like day players like myself, I had never met this woman before. And she looks at me and she goes, "Oh, hi, great to see you. Oh, your audition tape made me laugh the first take."
And you're like, "Who are you?" Oh no.
It was the casting director.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to think for myself, how do I build a relationship with that person?
Yeah. Well, one thing that I have found helpful is when I have an audition with a casting director I've never met.
Yeah.
This is going to sound so stupid. I look them up online and I try and find the most recent picture of them.
I do that too.
Do you do that too?
I totally try and find out who the photograph.
I want to know what they look like so that I can, when I go into the room, I can say, "How are you, Paul? How are you, Judy?" Whatever, right?
Yeah. Can I tell you something? I took it a step further. I would show up to EPAs and chorus calls, having printed out a photo page of all of the people listed on the creative team. So I remember going to a Lion King audition, and they saw my face, my photo page with Elton John on it.
Oh no!
And they were like, "Oh, honey, none of those people are going to be here." I was like, "I know, but I just wanted to know."
It's inspiration. Shut up. It's my audience for the next 10 minutes. Don't bring my party down. Don't rain on my parade. Now, would you ever consider going on an open call again even though you have an agent?
Yes, I would. I feel as though there are casting directors that I don't know. Mm-hmm. And since the Go-See does not exist anymore,
it's kind of like
I need to figure out how do I meet those casting directors, and there's no guarantee that if
the main players will be there,
that the main player will be in the room at the open call at the EPA. But I do feel like I have to figure out a way to meet the casting directors who don't know me.
Do you think that the casting assistant, they're like, "You're the only person you have to go to this required open call at Equity, right? Don't do anything. Take a pile of pictures, say thank you, and bring it here, and we'll dispose of them."
That can't be true.
Well, I don't know. It's either that or they go, "Make notes so we can see if there's anybody we should call in."
Right.
On our own. But who knows which one it is? I mean, they're busy people.
And also, that casting assistant is trying to work their way up the ladder. So they are trying to impress their boss by saying, "Everybody I saw today was garbage," which may be true. Yeah. They're only going to risk their livelihood, their stake in that office, the little foothold that they've got in that office. They're only going to risk that for somebody who they know
that's right
is worth it.
That's true. I hadn't thought. That's a good idea. That's a good point. So
if you do want to make it past the gatekeeper,
not
only do you have to be really what they're looking for, you better be the best person they're going to see all day.
Yeah. Oh, you reminded me of something. Yes. Well, and of course, you would be. You will be there. I know what you're going to say. You'll say, "I'll be there." No, you would be the greatest. You'd be the best one they saw all day.
I feel as though smaller theater companies can't afford big fancy casting directors, so they do show up to the EPAs.
Yeah, that's true.
They do.
Yeah,
so it was at one of those required open calls with a smaller agency that one of them confessed to me after I booked the job. They said, "Oh, you were easily the best person that we saw that day."
Oh, so isn't that nice?
One person has said that to me. I'm going to take that with me every single time.
Yeah.
Oh, because that's self-motivating.
And we so often so much work in a vacuum.
You never get the feedback. How do you build a relationship with a casting director?
Yeah.
Let's talk about the elephant in the room.
That is the elephant in the room. Pay for play.
Pay for play.
Yeah, I knew it.
I had some success with pay for play. And I'll tell you, back in the day, the casting director for Sex and the City would occasionally do one. I managed to get a slot with one of her classes.
Yeah.
And she ended up calling me in for a 3-line role or something. And so I know that they work.
Yeah.
But you've got to be the best person in the room.
Okay. If that's true, I get that. That's okay. I have confidence that I could at least be one of the best people they'll see because I'm just, if for no other reason than all my experience, I would probably occur for them as more seasoned than maybe most of the people that are coming in.
You'll be the most memorable without any question.
Very diplomatic.
I was talking about your experience, Patrick.
Well, but I will say that the only thing I hesitate about is because I think, is it right for me to go and pay to meet them? It feels really like something's wrong with that.
Because they're,
I wrestle with it.
Our union, our stage union, Actors Equity, requires casting directors to hold casting sessions that are open to the entire membership. They're called open calls. Right. It's EPAs. Yeah. That's chorus calls. Right.
Well, and all it takes is somebody from their office.
That is true. I did book my first Broadway show from an EPA.
Did you really?
I went to an EPA to be the standby for the commercial run of Title of Show at the Vineyard, and 2 years later, however many years later, that became my first Broadway show.
Oh my God.
So yeah.
That's a really, that's a really inspiring story, actually. I love that. You know what I think is a misnomer? A lot of actors call casting directors gatekeepers, and I think that's a mistake.
I think I've done it on this episode.
I think it's a mistake. No, you've referred to the interns as gatekeepers.
Oh, right.
But I think we should think of the casting director as the destination, because they are, until they're not.
Right.
Until we move from them to the director.
Right.
And then the director's the destination, or the thing. I mean, if you're going to think that in that way, for me, it's just another chance to play a part.
That's a mental game, right? Because you can't think of the initial audition with the casting director as being, well, I won't put everything out there because I'll save it for the director. You've missed the opportunity.
Yeah, and also
you've got to do it right then and show it to the casting director.
You have to, yeah.
Because the casting director is the one who's going to say, this person is not going to waste my time, is not going to waste my reputation, is not going to waste my slot.
Well, also, there's another piece of it, which is even if you're not doing that mental thing, even if you're not saying, well, I'll hold back, you're still doing a disservice to yourself because you're actually relegating the casting director to something far beneath what they are. They're not just a gatekeeper.
Right.
They're a creative entity in the room.
Yeah.
That's there to they're there for a reason. So I actually think it's really detrimental for actors' mentalities. Now that I think about it, I never really thought about it before, but I think it's actually really detrimental because then we've got a chip on our shoulder about the whole
process of casting.
Yeah, a whole profession. And I do believe we've talked about this before. Well, I'm sure it'll come up lots of times because it's just how I believe. I do really believe that the energy a person brings is every bit as palpable and tangible and visceral as the clothes they wear, the work they do, the eye contact they
talent,
make,
way,
all of it.
Yeah.
That is a real element.
Walk in the door and say, hello, friends.
Hello, friends.
Not sorry.
Not sorry. That's why I think that's what would probably motivate me to want a relationship, to go to a pay for play. That might be the motivation for me to do it. I might have a sort of a ethical wrestle with it. Like, I don't know, is this right? Should I do it? So I'm paying to meet some. But in the end, it might be that it's the only way for me to say, look, I really want to work. I really want to meet you. I want to develop a relationship. I believe in relationships in this business. And this is the only way I could figure out how to do it.
That's true. I think that's absolutely true.
And then they say, here's your money back and a starring role in the next upcoming Broadway hit. And the movie
worked it out.
And the movie that will be made of it.
You've worked it out for all of us.
I have. Because I'm the source of working it out.
That's why I'm paying you the big bucks.
That's why I'm Patrick fucking Richwood.
Work.
Without missing a beat. Work. This was a good conversation.
If you've enjoyed this conversation, please click like and subscribe.
Hit the thing and click the thing. And
visit our website.
Visit our website, workingactorsnyc.com.
Like we know what we're doing.
I know. Who are we kidding?